Welcome back to My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we are talking about letting go of your ego. Now, before we went on the break, Dad, you were saying that you wanted to talk about what the ego's job actually is.
Yeah. So let me just kind of break this down. So your ego's job is to keep you safe and to protect you. So that, here's an example. You and your family are walking out of the movie theater, and before you got there to the movies earlier, you parked a little farther than you were closest to the theater, and it was still light out. When you got out, it was late. So when you get out, you see your cars a couple blocks down, and as you're walking there, you look down and you see an alley. There's a shortcut, and so you're about to walk your family down this alley to get to the car in a shortcut, and you get this instinctual feeling in your gut that tells you don't go down there. That's your ego telling you don't go down there. It's not safe. Take the long way around where it's lit and there's more people where you can be seen. That's your ego's job, is to protect you. Or you're walking and there's a thunderstorm and you see a tree that doesn't look normal, and your ego's like, don't go underneath there. That tree's about to fall, and it's saying get the heck out of the way from that falling tree. That's what ego's job is designed to do, is to really kind of guide us so that we can live another day. Now, with that being said, when we take ego unchecked into our relationships, ego's job is to protect us and keep us safe. Safe from what? Its job is to protect us and keep us safe from being hurt by people that we love. So what it does is it puts up walls. It keeps people at bay. It won't let you let people in. It won't allow you to be vulnerable. It doesn't want you to be intimate. It doesn't want you to reveal yourself or share your secrets or tell the person what your fears are. It doesn't want you to reveal any of that stuff. But yet we want to be in deep, meaningful, loving, connected relationships, and yet we don't realize that our ego is there silently sabotaging us from engaging to that kind of a level. So that's the two different pictures that I want to paint for you. And I'm not just painting them for you, I'm painting them for myself for the 1,000th time, so that I can constantly remind myself not to bring my ego into my relationships. Because it's like wanting to go swimming, but yet you have your suit on. You don't want to take your suit off. You gotta put the proper gear on, put your swimsuit on, so that you can go swimming and enjoy yourself. So you got to set yourself up to win. And when you're going into relationships, you got to really learn that your ego's not there for your best interest.
So I have to say this as the other side, because I know there's people who are listening who are trying to justify why, we're trying to justify why we do the things that we do. Mm-hmm. So when you're saying not to take your ego into relationships, I think there's times where your ego plays a very important role. For example, when you're going out on a nice dinner date, and I know I don't need makeup. He knows I don't need makeup. But if we're going to a really fancy restaurant, we're all getting dressed up, I think he would appreciate if I had makeup on, or, whatever that looks like for guys, the vice versa for guys. So I think there's certain times where your ego in your relationships is important, and it, not just in romantic relationships, but if I wanted one day just to bring my mom flowers just because, that, yes, it is a genuine act towards my mom, but it also is a little bit of my ego. Like, I got to do something for my mom because she's my mom. So I think there's certain times where we are coming from our ego, and that's okay.
It's all okay. So if you interpreted that, what I was saying, that there's right or wrong or good or bad, you've misinterpreted what I was describing. All I'm describing is how your ego can sabotage your relationships when it's unchecked. It's okay to have your ego wherever you go. I'm just saying, be aware of it. Don't have it run you to where you're unchecked and don't realize that ego is running the show, is the captain of the ship, is the pilot of the plane. You have to be the captain of the ship and the pilot of the plane, and tell ego to sit side of you to be the co-captain. And then when you're getting into deep, meaningful conversation at dinner, past the lipstick and the makeup, tell your ego, hey, go make some coffee in the back. I got this.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to paint is that or maybe I'm saying this out loud because this is what I want
Yeah,
from my
awesome.
ego. I want to turn my ego on when I'm getting ready.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want to do the whole this and that.
Okay.
And then when I get into the moment and I get into, I guess as you would say, the meat and potatoes of
The conversation or the relationship,
that's when I want to be able to put it to the side. And choosing from those two different places all the time is so exhausting. But I think that I've never really thought about it like that. I thought about it more in the sense that, yeah, I'm about to go on this date and I'm going to put my ego on. It's going to be a fun night. And I'm so focused on making this a good, fun night that I forget that me being genuine is fun in itself, and it's probably better than whatever I was trying to do with my ego.
Yeah, the challenge becomes while you're getting ready for those 2 hours, letting ego take the lead and dressing yourself and going through 20 dresses because none of them seem to be right because ego is so judgmental. And then in that process, you might walk out of your room and forget to go, okay, ego, now walk behind me. You forget.
Yeah.
And then now you're in an argument, full-blown out argument at the dinner because you forgot to put ego at check. So all I'm saying is it's okay to have, and there is no right or wrong, it's okay to switch and choose which roles which. You just got to be aware that it's gonna benefit you when your authentic self has been discovered and you're running the show, knowing when and how to put it aside.
Yeah,
or take that seat.
Man, I don't even have words because I really like that concept, because for me, ego is at times really fun. Playing with my ego and doing the whole, you got to do the whole thing. Like, to me, that's fun. And then when it comes down to the serious stuff or the important stuff, even, at work or in business and certain relationships, when there's time to put it away, that's when I have to be honest and I have to start making myself uncomfortable, and it's not very fun. But as long as I can make a compromise, that makes me feel a little bit better, that there's times where I can feel okay about letting my ego do its thing, and then knowing that I need to, if I'm going to let it run its course during that time, that I need to turn it off during this time.
Let's take actresses and actors, for example. When the camera goes on and they say lights, camera, action, boom, ego comes on. And are they having fun?
Yeah.
They embody a character, they embody this fictitious character, and they bring it to life. That's the ego. When they're done and they go, cut, and everyone's, hey, good job, hey, thank you, now your ego's going, yeah, thank you, look what I did, right? They're getting their, and then when they're done and they drive home and their kids run up, let's say it's Robert De Niro. He gets home and he's not that good fella gangster anymore. He's just dad to his kids. And they, hey, dad, they come and they give him. And so he gets to now turn off ego and bring his authentic, loving spirit to his fatherhood. And he gets to be loving and caring and playful with his kids. And he doesn't have to be Mr. Gangster mobster dude or even a celebrity status person. A lot of people that are in showbiz, they understand this experience. They know what it's like. They get treated certain ways at restaurants where people are like treating them a certain way, or even they can notice people watching them or looking at them at a certain way, like big old googly eyes at them, and then they get around their friends and like, oh, you're just Chris, you're just my buddy that I grew up with in high school. And I think they love that. They love that. Their friends or their relatives or their uncles or aunts or cousins, they're just like, you're just my cousin Chris, and they're gonna joke with them and play with them like they're just the authentic them. They know who they really are, versus this big persona that they pretend to be or play or portray for the rest of the world to either entertain them or to create that kind of entertainment value for others.
Yeah, and there's this, I guess, saying or this phrase that you use often when you're talking about being conscious or being a conscious parent, being conscious in relationships, whatever it is. You usually say, who are you choosing to be? And for me, I never really considered that my ego was who I was choosing to be. When you say that, I was always conflicted with the idea that maybe I was saying, you know how we do the there's doing and there's being. So I have been focusing so much on the being, so much on the, okay, well, do I want to be happy today? Do I want to be sad? Do I want to be emotional? Do I want to just have a good time? So I focus so much on that I never realized until right now when you were talking that who I'm choosing to be is my ego. So that whole time when I'm going back and forth, like, who am I going to be today? It was just my ego arguing with itself, like, what version of my ego am I going to be? Instead of just being like, just saying, no, you're not going to be any version of that. You're just going to just be you. Just, and that sounds easy. And it's, just to say, just be you. But when you are consciously putting that ego back.
The reason why it gets complicated is because you say, just be you, or I am just being me. And then I say, okay, great. Then who are you? And then you go, I'm Alex. No, that's your name. I'm a man. Okay, that's your gender. But who are you? And so then it starts a whole new question of trying to figure out who am I? And then that starts the spiritual journey of trying to figure out who you are. And that's an amazing experience and an extraordinary journey to embark on is, living in the question of, what would it be like if I can just figure out who I am so that I can stop pretending to be all the other personalities or personas, and how freeing would that be to just discover who I am once and for all, and just be that, be a mess, be weird. I'm okay being goofy or being a nerd or being whatever you are, and that's who you were born to be it. Practice being okay with being it. Practice being accepting of you, and that's who you are. Like we make fun of your mom, when she makes these jokes that are kind of corny. It's like, love that about yourself. And then what'll happen is maybe your kids will love that about you, and maybe your husband will start loving that about you. From my end, taking responsibility for my relationship, I get to choose to love that about her before even maybe she does about herself, because what that does is that now creates a safe space for her just to be that, and there's no right or wrong or judgment or comparison. It's just, I'm starting to learn to love people more for who they are. You got someone that's shady, or someone that's always trying to get the upper hand on you or take advantage of you. You know what? Can your spirit learn to love that about them and learn to accept that that's them in their process of consciousness, and not trying to be in resistance to it? But if I let my ego come out, my ego is going to want to now pull someone aside and go, can you believe what Tim's doing? And I can't believe that he's doing that. And doesn't he know me? That's ego coming out, doing all that, playing all that game, talking behind his back, and, being in resistance to it. But my spirit's, compassionate, going, hey, the poor guy, he must really feel like he needs to hustle people, or he has to pull a fast one on others to get ahead or whatever. So it really kind of opens up this whole new world for you to really look at and be aware of.
I'm laughing because as you're explaining that, I'm thinking of certain people who have such I don't know what the word is. I guess I want to say needy egos, where they really need something from whatever they're putting out. And I can see it. And because I want them to like me and I want to have a relationship with them.
Being liked is a big ego game.
Yeah. So because I want that, I just give it to them. I know what they're looking for, so I give it to them. They're looking for validation, or they're looking for someone to say, wow, that's a great idea, or what, so they're looking for that so much that sometimes I'm sitting there like, oh, who am I to take that away from them? Let them have it. It's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And so I think it's funny because, as you were saying, when you're in resistance, I find that there's a lot of people's egos that I'm in resistance to, and then others where I'll give them exactly what they're looking for.
I had this one time. It was actually a year ago during this week. It was at the last Home and Garden, KHTS Home and Garden show, where I walked up to a friend out there at the site. And it was a couple days we were setting up, and he walks up to me and he starts sharing some stuff with me. He was really excited, and I could tell that he was patting himself on his back. He was building himself up to me, and kind of, his ego was just on a rant, and he was going on and going on. And I had a big smile on my face, and I was being a committed listener, and I was listening and smiling and giving him all that. And then when he was done, I didn't say anything. I didn't give him his goodies. Like, I didn't give him the payoffs. I just smiled, and I just let there be awkward silence. So so this is what it's going to sound like. So it was, it's going to sound weird on the radio because there's silence, but it just went like, and what he said to me was, he goes, "Ooh, the thunder of the silence." That's what he said to me. He goes, "Ooh, the thunder of the silence." And he looked at me and he goes, "Your silence is so thundering." And I allowed him to be in the silence to hear himself figure out what his ego sounded like. And without putting him on blast or, being Mr. Coach or coaching him or calling him on it, I just didn't respond and put a smile on my face and just didn't say, "Oh, good for you," or "good job," because I could tell that it was his neediness of needing approval from me. And I didn't feel like I wanted to give it to him because I didn't want to keep feeding his ego such that he thinks that that's what life is about. Does that make sense? And because I like the guy, he's a friend of mine, and I didn't want to continue to pat him on his back. Because for me, all my good friends for me don't entertain my ego. All my good friends, when I come to them with something or if I'm sharing something, they're not patting me on my back and acknowledging the victim version and the ego part of me. My good friends are always the ones that are holding me accountable or calling me out on things and going, "Well, how did you create that?" or "How did you play a part in that?" And a lot of times when we're complaining and ego's running its course and it's being the victim and all that, a lot of times we go to our friends because we want them to pat us on our back and go, "Oh, poor guy. Yeah, that shouldn't have happened." And a lot of times that's what we're looking for, is for our friends to acknowledge and validate our ego for us. But your good to great friends, they're not going to do that. They're just going to call you on your own stuff, hold you accountable, or they might just be in silence and just nod at you with a big smile on their face.
But yeah, sometimes that's exactly what you need. Sometimes that's what I need. I have a friend who has no problem just Godzillaing it all over my plans, and I'm like, "Are you serious?" But that's what makes her a good friend, and I do that with her too. And it's funny too, because sometimes I'll start by saying she'll do her whole thing, and I'll go, "I don't want to sound like my dad or anything, but
yeah.
I always start like that." And then she goes, "Well, that means you're about to sound like your dad." So, and then we'll just start laughing because we both know
that's a symbol for, I'm not going to buy your sad story today, because you're so much bigger than that. You are so, if you're listening right now, speaking to you, you are so much bigger and so much more powerful than your whiny, complaining excuses and stories and victim blaming. And when you get good friends and you get people that stand for you, they're going to stand in the heat. They're going to stand in the fire and not play the game. They're not going to feed your ego when you're sitting there playing the victim and blaming other people. With that being said, you gonna take us out on a break?
We gotta take a break. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You're listening to My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about letting go of your ego. And before we went on the break, we were talking about how our friends either buy or don't buy our stuff. So one of the things I wanted to bring up about that was, I know that in my relationships, I have to me, it probably doesn't really seem like that big of an ego, but I never really considered that it probably comes off more than I think it does. And I want to say 90% of the time, everybody's ego comes off more than they think it does. So
absolutely. So, I know for sure, my ego comes out when I don't have it in check, and, I need to surround myself around people that are willing to call me on it. I need to have more people around me that I trust and that can go, "Hey, there you go again. There's your ego," or "It just came out," and that kind of stuff. And I do have a few of those. I'm just not around with them all the time. But if you really want to work on that, you want to, grow and discover and, discover more of your authentic self, you really need to ask people and invite them to call you out when it appears like your ego's coming out, or you're trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to make excuses, or you're trying to hide behind something other than just your authentic self. And a lot of times it'll look like this. Sometimes I'll be sitting with someone and I'll ask them, they'll be frustrated about something, and I'll say, "How do you feel?" And they won't tell me how they feel. They'll want to tell me about the story and justify them being right about it. And a lot of times I'll say, "Yeah, but how do you feel about it?" And I'll ask them the second time or third time, And your ego will never tell you how you really feel about something. It's going to just play its game, and it's going to go around it, and it's going to keep trying to find other stories to tell you. But your authentic self, your spirit, won't have a problem saying, you know what, Alex, I'm sad, or I'm hurt, or I'm disappointed. I thought that, I thought that I could trust this person. So only your spirit will be able to have enough courage to share deeply like that and reveal itself so powerfully. Ego's not going to do that. Ego's going to want to continue to justify it and come up with reasons why and play all the games to avoid you really, learning how to reveal yourself and share yourself so authentically.
I think there is, how they say you are your friends, right? So I think for me, it was a really good learning lesson, because I have a lot of friends who are like me, and I am a yes man. My friends are yes men. They always want to please, and they always want to, they don't want to let anyone down. Same with me. So I think I'm saying this out loud to myself. So I think
it's perfect. This is part of the learning process, is you outing yourself.
Yeah, and I think if I surround myself a little bit more with people who had a little bit more confidence in themselves to say no, who are a little bit more comfortable saying no, I know that that's something that I've been going, a process that I've been going through for the last couple years, and even a process that my friends come to me for advice with, that I'm not really where I want to be with it, but I am conscious, and at least I'm working on it. So they'll, come to me with, well, I don't want to do both of these things. What do I do? And for me, that yes man part of me is my ego, that I just feel like I'm fighting with it so much that it kind of feels like I'll never get past it. So I'm thinking, if I'm surrounding myself with people who are also like that, or maybe are they the ones that just in that part of my life that's holding me back from breaking through that, and surrounding myself with people who value their time more and can say no to things. Maybe surrounding myself with those people is what's going to bring me and just push me through, because I just been going for the last 3 years back and forth with that part of my ego, with being a yes man.
Well, you're doing pretty good, when it comes to saying no to me and your mom. So we must be your best.
I mastered that part.
We must be your best test pilots, right? Because I've been noticing the last, 2 or 3 years, you've been, finding enough courage to say no to some of our requests. And I know it's been a tough and challenging journey for you, because, we're your parents, and you probably struggle with, the ego, saying that you don't want to let us down and all that kind of stuff. And so we've been through the ups and downs. And at the end of the day, I don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I think I told you the last time when you said no to me or whatever, or you said yes and then you were complaining, I said, you know what, some of the stuff, if you say no, I'll figure out how to go somewhere else and get it. It's not do or die. I'm not that incompetent that I can't either figure it out for myself or enroll someone else, or like I have other trump cards in my pocket, or I'll just go find someone I can pay. It's not a big deal. And I think when I said that to you, maybe the last time, it kind of freed you up a little bit to not feel as guilty to say yes to everything and not say no. It's okay to be a little bit selfish. It's okay to say, hey, my weekends are my time, and I want to be able to do those things for whatever I need to do. And I think there's some power in being selfish a little bit, and taking being worthy enough to spend your own quality time with you and whatever it is that you choose to do, rather than doing it for other people.
Yeah, and I find that, and I'm gonna say this out loud, and this is my secret, but it's probably gonna open up doors in our relationship. But I find that when I do finally say no, like I just know I don't have enough time for this, or that's going to it's just going to suck up so much time, I have to say no. And when I do say no, you do your little thing, you're fine, don't, you do your little thing just to mess with me.
When you need me, let's see if I'm around.
And then I find that if it's something that you really, really need from me, a couple days will go by or a couple weeks will go by and you'll ask me again. And that's when I'm like, okay, I got to find time for this thing.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us today on My Conscious Dad. We're here every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on your hometown station, KHTS.